Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Derek and Eric here.
How's it going?
That's going well, man. We got a full stack of stories. This is a very
much
TMZ lineup of stories because it's got a little bit of everything. We got a little Kanye, got a little Kardashians, got a little Trump. Everything's
Some
there.
sports scandals.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to that.
We'll get into that. All right, let's start with Donald Trump. So Donald Trump, who is under assault from a lot of angles. He's being sued by Letitia James in New York. He seems to be under assault. And what do people do when they're cornered? They sometimes lash out.
Yeah,
so now
like a cornered animal.
He's a cornered animal, and he needs to have something on the offense, and he found it. So he has filed a lawsuit in district court, in federal court in Fort Lauderdale, which he loves that for him.
Yeah.
Florida, I'm from, it's a mixed state. I guess it's sort of purple, but there are some
It's very red in some places, very blue in some places.
Very, very red in some places.
Yeah.
That is the key for Donald Trump. And the red parts are sort of deeply red and strange, conspiracy-minded people.
They're very
in
MAGA
Florida.
red.
Yes, very MAGA red. So that is his home base. It's where Mar-a-Lago is. He's filed this lawsuit where he is suing CNN. Obviously, that is his bête noire, right? That is
He hates CNN. That has been the bane of his existence since before he ran for president.
Yes. Do you remember when he would post those memes of wrestling where there would be a CNN block on someone's head? He hates CNN. And it's hated them
and they don't
for
love
years.
him either.
And they don't love him. No love lost. The network did largely build the 4 years of his administration. They largely built their coverage around opposition to him. I think that's just a fact.
Of course.
There was a lot to oppose. And we'll get into that. But what he focused on in this lawsuit is he's saying they've defamed me. And the way they've defamed me is by focusing all of their news coverage on my efforts to push what has been called the big lie. The big lie, obviously, is him challenging the results of the 2020 election, saying that they were fraudulent, there was no way that Biden could have won, and pushing this narrative forward. CNN has likened it to the big lie. Now, the big lie has a historical context.
And a lot of people maybe don't know that.
That's right. That's right.
This was right out of Hitler's playbook.
I mean, literally out of his playbook. The term comes from Mein Kampf, which was what Hitler wrote in prison during one of his imprisonments before he took power. And the idea is this: a small lie is hard to pass by somebody, but a large lie, because it's so outlandish, people think, well, someone wouldn't make that up. It must have
true.
A kernel of truth.
Of course.
And this is actually a strategy employed by Hitler during his rise to power. It was let's create anger towards Jewish people. He famously sort of blamed the loss in World War I on a guy named Erich Ludendorff, who was a Jewish guy.
You're getting deep into history here.
Yeah. So anyway,
but basically, the bigger the lie, the more people will believe it.
That's right.
And CNN was saying, so by Trump, by making these ridiculous declarations that I won the election and everything is fraud and 4 million immigrants and dead people voted or whatever he was saying. So now he's suing them, saying, you compared me to Hitler.
Yeah, you made a comparison and analyzed what I was doing here and called it the big lie, and that has likened me to Hitler, and it's battered my reputation. Now, putting aside whether Donald Trump as a person is sort of defamation proof because he's so battered in so many ways through his past with, known adultery and things of that nature. But he's saying you can't compare me to Hitler, and you're only doing it so that you can win this next election in 2024 by muddying me up enough with Hitler that I couldn't possibly win.
And also, like he says, that part of his lawsuit, there's a lot of things that they called him racist and insurrectionist. And also that he goes, they only reported on the negative stories about me, never about the positive things.
It's remarkable.
They don't have to.
Yes. News organizations are allowed to cover the news stories that they find relevant to their audience.
There are lots of news organizations, and they don't all have to say positive things about whoever the current president is.
That's right.
We know this.
Now, remember, there's a lot of people who think news has to be fair and balanced, right? And to some extent, your coverage has to be well-researched. You have to look into the other side. But that's not really what he's accusing CNN of. He's saying CNN didn't cover all the positive stories. They don't have to.
They don't have to.
They don't have to. Some could say that the other news organizations don't cover positive stories in the other direction. That's what news coverage is. The big problem with this from a legal perspective is these are mostly opinions about Donald Trump. What they would do is take videos of things he said about the election and say, well, this sure seems like the big lie, and he's pushing it because there is no voter fraud, and
so,
several cases have determined that there was no voter fraud.
There's no chance he could win this lawsuit.
No.
I can't see that. And also...
It's a stunt.
But the big lie thing...
Seems
so then to prove it's not defamation, CNN has to prove... Well, they don't have to prove it. They just say, you lost over 60 cases about the election, and you kept saying it. it was a lie.
Yeah, I also think it'll be dismissed well before that because these are opinions, and opinions are protected. I mean, if CNN ran its coverage and said Donald Trump had an affair with this particular woman, and he could prove I never met that woman, that's defamation. That's a misstatement of fact that wasn't researched, and he could have told them, hey, this is untrue. I've never met this woman. I was in another place, had a full alibi. That's defamation.
But the opinion is, I think he's a bad guy.
Yeah,
based on here's clips of things he said. He's got to know he can't win this lawsuit.
Yes.
So,
but he put in $475 million.
Yeah,
so
half
that gets
$1 billion almost, which he could probably use right now. So is this just distraction from all the other things, from the Letitia James, the Mar-a-Lago investigation, the January 6th committee? Like, there's still so many things going on as he's trying to look forward to 2024 and running again.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can. I think that's what this is. I mean, this is him on the offense, but not in a very serious way, from my perspective. Now, maybe his lawyers know more, and maybe they have some sort of smoking gun of actual defamation that they'll push. I doubt it. But
well, it seems like they would have led with that.
Yeah, you would probably lead with that. But he's sort of positioning himself to say, like, I'm a fighter. You know, this is all about electability in 2024. He wants to say, like, look, they've been trashing me. Don't believe all of the stuff that has been levied against me. Yeah, it's all about news coverage. He is trying to blunt the impact of all the things that are happening to him, from the raid at Mar-a-Lago, from Letitia James is suing him over, and he's saying that's all part of this CNN spectacle. Don't believe that stuff. They don't cover the good things about me. I'm not sure it'll work. At some point, there's a level of exhaustion that you get.
As a distraction, all this will do is reinforce his base in things they already believe.
That's right.
Like, what is he really accomplishing? Yeah, like this doesn't really change any opinion one way or another, I don't think.
No, and it's sort of a sad commentary. We're all in our echo chambers, so this isn't going to convince anyone who already thinks Trump is sort of clownish and a buffoon, and it's also not going to lose him any people who are inclined to believe him.
People who already called CNN fake news already think that.
Yeah.
This just reinforces that.
Yeah, from my perspective, the thing that saddens me is that law firms take this seriously enough to write a sort of well-written lawsuit by a big law firm that's representing him. And I don't know how in good conscience you can sort of, bring these types of lawsuits. Maybe that's a Pollyannish view of what my profession is, but it's a little...
You have a higher view of your profession than most people do.
I really do, but I don't think this will go anywhere. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, look, there's a lot of judges in the federal system that he put in power, so maybe they will find something persuasive about these arguments. I
can't see him winning this.
We'll have to... Let's move on.
To another very outspoken, divisive figure here, Kanye.
Yeah,
has been all over social media because at Paris Fashion Week wore a T-shirt that said "White Lives Matter." Mm-hmm. Brought Candace Owens out; she also wore it. A lot of his models wore it. And now
big bold lettering. Yeah.
Big bold lettering, and now he is doubling down on that. He posted, "Everyone knows that Black Lives Matter was a scam. Now it's over. You're welcome."
So describe, what is he talking about it being a scam? What do you think he's
referring to? So there is a lot of there is some basis for this. Some of the executives of the Black Lives Matter, not the movement as a concept, but the actual organization.
Yeah.
There have been some investigations into misappropriation of funds, people buying houses with money that was brought in from donations. So I'm assuming that's what he's referencing.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people have been saying what he's doing by wearing this shirt is dangerous. And this, of course, I've seen all the back and forth online. People are like, oh, why is, saying white lives matter a dangerous idea? It's not saying I don't think that, white people don't matter.
Yeah.
It's just that's kind of the default of this country.
Right.
It's the same argument we've had about Black Lives Matter for years now. The comparison people make, if two houses are on a block and one's on fire and fire trucks race to the one on fire, the person in the other house doesn't go, why aren't you coming to my house?
Right.
My house matters.
Right.
Your house isn't on fire. That's...
Now, let me take a step back. I think you're right. I think this is such a deliberate provocation. He didn't even wear an All Lives Matter shirt.
White Lives. He knew what he was doing.
He went to White Lives Matter. Someone at Vogue, I forget her name, was trying to make sense of what he's doing, because there's always at least a first inclination to be like, what is Kanye trying to say as an artist? Because he is an artist, whether you like him or not, and he's a provocateur. So what is the message of this? Because there was a lot of confusion. Why White Lives Matter? Why didn't you do the All Lives Matter? That would have sort of made sense within the existing narrative.
And if it is his anger over executives from Black Lives Matter, allegedly using funds,
you can go after Black Lives Matter.
Or you can go after those specific people.
Sure.
The concept of what it is, it's just so odd. And of course, Kanye, what he says one day will have no bearing on what he says the next day.
Right.
But it's so hard to remember as the guy that said, George W. Bush doesn't care about black people.
That's right.
To now be wearing a White Lives Matter shirt.
It was very strange. I remember when he wore the MAGA hat, the defense of what Kanye was doing was saying, the message of this hat is good. It is just the context of who is wearing it that's destructive. So if Donald Trump wears this hat, he is envisioning a certain sort of callback to 50s America and sort of potentially a bad time for minorities. When Kanye wears a hat, he is maybe saying something like "Make America Great Again" when we were sort of a more liberal country. Maybe he's saying that.
I don't think that's what he's saying. No.
But at least you can say that the hat is contextual, because making America great again can mean different things to different people. This is an affront. I mean, this is so provocative. Now, one woman from Vogue did have a defense of it. Not a defense, but she was trying to work out what he might be saying. And I don't know how much you buy this, but the notion is he's kind of like Duchamp. You remember Duchamp would put like he's the artist who put a little mustache on the Mona Lisa, or he put a urinal in a weird context. She's saying that maybe he is saying that if Black Lives Matter is successful, then the people who will need their lives to matter will be white people in some dystopian future. And
I think people are doing cartwheels to try and make this make sense.
I think so too.
I think a lot of it's what it is, and he kind of backs us up. You know, when Kanye was posing with Trump and wearing the Make America Great Again hat, he was saying, I'm not going to be part of like groupthink, basically. I'm a free thinker. You can't tell me what to think. It was almost like a defiance of, oh, well, because people think I'm black and liberal that I have to do this. And so one of the things he said to this was, I am Ye, and everyone here knows that I am the leader. You can't manage me.
Right.
It's almost like he resents having to be part of a black movement that he's not in charge of. I mean, you can't. He
doesn't want to be a follower.
You can't guess what he's thinking.
Yeah, at his core, he's a narcissist. I mean, I think that's, to me, that is very clear from looking at Kanye. And he's also contrarian. And he doesn't want to follow the norm. He is an artist who sees himself as, when everyone is turning right, I'm going to turn left. But what turning left means doesn't matter as much to him.
Well, this is more turning right.
Fair enough. Everyone's turning left. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But he is, I think that's part of him, is he wants to sort of challenge people who are moving in one direction. If he sees the herd moving, he will move the other way just to force them to think. I just don't think he thought this.
But yeah, sometimes if the herd's going this way, maybe it's because there's a cliff and they don't want to fall over it.
Right.
And sometimes you fall right off the cliff.
He likes to run headlong into the cliff.
Yeah.
I look, he's very exhausting. I don't think this will sort of change how we view Kanye. There will be more times that he does this, and we will talk about them again and again.
I think people, like fans, are either off the wagon at this point or they're not.
I think that's right.
Either you've chosen, ride or die, or you've been off for a while.
The most telling thing is I saw this. He's wearing a White Lives Matter shirt, and I wasn't surprised in the slightest.
No,
it didn't shock me. It was just like, oh, this is more Kanye being Kanye, and I think he runs the risk of, if he's always contrarian, everyone is just going to be like, oh, we get it. You're a hate.
When you're shocking all the time, you're not shocking anymore.
Shock. Exactly.
It's like, okay, I expect this from you.
The most predictable thing is for you to wear a White Lives Matter shirt.
It is. It's kind of predictable at this point.
If he came out in a trench coat and everyone guessed, oh, do you have a White Lives Matter shirt? Someone would have guessed that. Anyway.
Yeah.
So that's a commentary on Kanye. But let's move over to Kim, because this is sort of fascinating to me. And it's always good to follow a Kanye story with a Kim story.
Yeah.
But she, just settled some pretty serious charges from the Securities and Exchange Commission. So Kim posted basically a promotion of this cryptocurrency called Ethereum Max, which is an offshoot of a very popular and sort of mainstream, to the extent any cryptocurrency can be mainstream. You have Bitcoin and Ethereum.
I have heard of those two words.
You've heard of those two words, right?
And I know nothing about Bitcoin, so this is more your thing.
But Ethereum Max is not that, although it was trading on the name Ethereum. It was an entirely separate coin, which she basically promoted to her, I think at the time had 250 million followers on Instagram, and just put a post up saying, hey, I heard from my financial friends that this is the coin to get into, lots of money to be made, so forth.
And she very clearly said this is not financial advice.
That's right. She did lead with this is not financial advice, and she also put hashtag ad at the bottom. But that's all she disclosed, which is a way to the FTC that you are indicating to the viewer that this is an advertisement and not to be taken as just your organic
Which is
post.
what you do on Instagram when she's doing her tummy tea or whatever thing.
Right.
You put hashtag ad. Everybody knows what that is. It's like, okay, she got paid. Whatever.
Buyer beware. We didn't know how much she got paid. Well, the SEC found out that
works. This works differently than Instagram.
This is different. So the FTC is different. That's not sort of deceiving customers of her tummy tea. This is about investors in a security, and the SEC takes this very seriously. They're trying to characterize all these cryptocurrencies as securities so that they can start regulating them. And they say, look, you were paid $250,000 is what the SEC says, and you needed to disclose all of that, and you didn't. By just putting hashtag ad, they didn't know that you were paid $250,000. So you have to not only disgorge the fee you got, but I'm going to slap you with $1 million penalty, which is not a lot of money to Kim Kardashian, but is a hefty fine for an individual to get from the SEC. So they said, pay back $1.26 million, and then they had a press release saying, hey, they basically put out a warning signal saying, hey, all you celebrities with these big followers, if you were promoting cryptocurrency, you got to follow our rules, is what they're laying down a marker. Kim has agreed to cooperate with the investigation. I don't think she'll be getting in crypto anymore, although query whether this has a larger impact on whether she's able to become a lawyer. I've seen a few stories about,
you are so anti-Kim being a lawyer. You're so threatened by that.
Well, you need good moral character like mine, Eric.
Well, you need to get into her lane. Start posting some bikini photos. Please don't.
The SEC, Gary Gensler is the head of the SEC, and he said this case is a reminder that when celebrities or influencers endorse investment opportunities, including crypto asset securities, and he called them securities, which is a point of dispute, it doesn't mean that those investment products are right for all investors. And he's saying there's a higher standard when you promote these things, and it's not just your tummy tea. This is different, and I'm going to slap you with a fine. I think you will see much more of this. Now, Kim is also being sued over promoting this in a civil lawsuit where people are saying, hey, I lost a lot of money. This is kind of like a pump and dump. The coin goes up. Were you holding it, and did you sell at a high price, and I'm left with this worthless coin? The coin is worth fractions, many, many decimal points away from a penny now. So people did lose a lot of money.
And I'm you don't want people to lose money, but if you're basing your financial advice off of a Kim Kardashian Instagram ad, that's on you.
It is. I get it. Buyer beware. And if you're, playing with investments on Robinhood or playing with cryptocurrency on Coinbase, you sort of know you're getting into something that is inherently very risky. That being said, the SEC is charged with protecting dummies. I mean, that is the role. I mean, yes, you're somewhat sophisticated, but
I'm a dummy on all this stuff.
Lowest common denominator. That's who you're protecting, is the person who does follow Kim Kardashian. That's their role. So that's why they slapped her with this, and you get a lot of news coverage. So hopefully the next person doesn't stupidly buy an Ethereum Max coin.
So does this hurt crypto in general? If celebrities are like, we're just going to back away from this?
I think it hurts it a lot. Crypto's in a weird state right now where it's been crushed, and it's trying to sort of regain its footing as a legitimate alternative to traditional currency. But when you see stuff like this, that it's rife with scams, and you hear a big person, we heard this with Matt Damon. Remember, Matt Damon was pushing some crypto, and Kim Kardashian. Everyone starts to get very nervous that, oh man, these are just all Ponzi schemes, and I'm a dummy. It's hard for it to imagine crypto surviving this because it's so based on people's faith in it being a real thing.
And so many people kind of don't think it was real to begin with.
Yes.
It's like what really, like stocks, you can kind of understand the concept of what a stock is. You own part of a company. But crypto, it's like, what?
It's currency. It's purely based on faith. The dollar is worth $1 because we all believe it's worth $1. It has no intrinsic value. It's a piece of paper. They're trying to do that with digital currency. It's a tough sell. It's always been a tough sell. Now, Bitcoin's still $19,000 a coin. It hasn't gone away.
You're into it. I'm not. But I know anytime you or somebody tries to start explaining it to me, at a point your eyes just kind of glaze over. It's like, you've lost me.
That's the problem.
And then when you do see mainstream things about it, it's this, where it's like, this is maybe kind of scammy.
Yeah.
Then you lose interest in wanting to be part of it.
Look, it's faced headwinds before and recovered. I don't think this is the end of cryptocurrency. Remember, at the beginning, there was something called Silk Road, where it was you could go online and use Bitcoin to buy basically heroin, and everyone said, I see what Bitcoin is for. It's for illegal transactions, and people were like, oh, that'll never take off. Then the Silk Road controversy moved away, and Bitcoin took off. Now it's being challenged by these headwinds from the SEC and Kim Kardashian and all this kind of stuff. It'll come back.
I kind of get it, but it also, I think, it feels to some people like if you remember, like in the late '90s and early 2000s, the .com boom, when people were making all this money on all these websites, and then the bottom fell out of that, and people lost their entire life savings.
But there's a few survivors. Amazon survived the original .com boom, so there will be a couple that last.
When you put it like that, like, oh, you might do really well with it, then it seems more not like a financial investment. It seems like playing the lottery to get rich.
Seems like a casino.
Yeah. And there's an appeal to that for people, but most people are not going to put their life savings in that.
That's right. It'll probably always be somewhat marginalized during our lifetime, but we'll have to see.
A sure way to win money.
This is the best story of the day.
Love this. This is our big sports scandal.
Yep.
And it's weird. It's not the usual sports. Mm-hmm. We recently had the cheating scandal in chess, maybe. Now we've got a huge cheating scandal in a fishing tournament.
Yes.
The
world of professional fishing.
Yes. The Lake Erie Walleye Trail, the LEWT, L-E-W-T. These two guys had won. Their fish weighed, 33 pounds total or something like that?
Yeah.
And so that's significantly more than these fish should have totaled.
And they felt a little lumpy.
So the judges started looking and found metal weights and other fish bits inside the fish. These two guys
and not
had
modest weights. I mean, there's sinkers that you use in fishing that are about this big. They're pulling out clumps of lead. When lead is a very heavy element.
Metal balls, and other and fish fillets and parts from other fish they had stuffed inside these. So the
fillets are amazing. They're like prepared fish fillets stuffed into an existing fish in this very meta way. But anyway,
so the judges discover this. There's amazing video where they're like, hold on, because it was a little suspicious how much these fish weighed compared to every other fish in the tournament. and they start finding the weights.
Yes.
And they start being like, these guys cheated.
And the man is standing there who has caught these fish, and he is silent, watching as they're gutting these fish and pulling the metal balls out of them.
Yeah.
It's remarkable video. I don't watch Game of Thrones, but I have seen the scene where she's walking through the corridor and they're just shaming her. Yeah. It's what it sounds like.
Oh, it's more aggressive than that.
Yeah.
These guys people start screaming lots of profanities out.
You better leave town.
It got on the verge of some violence there.
Yeah.
The
indignation is real though, because when you win these tournaments, there's real prizes.
They won
almost $30,000.
Yeah, $28,760 they would have won.
And the allegation is that this goes further than just this tournament. That these guys have been winning fishing tournaments all over, and now prosecutors are looking into it because this is serious. Look, and they're looking into potential felony charges. I think the charge, they haven't determined what it would be, but it'd be something like theft by deception is a charge. They are winning through cheating. Now, you're not just cheating the game where you violate the rules and you're kicked out of the tournament. You're stealing money from people who could have potentially won. Yeah. Now you've got a crime.
And that's, you're a lawyer, you might know this, $30,000, is that a felony, or what's the dollar amount for felonies and misdemeanors?
Oh, yeah. Usually $1,000 is grand theft. So I'm sure it varies by jurisdiction, but we're well over the threshold. Yeah. This would be felony grand theft by deception.
This is like reverse Deflategate.
It really is.
It's
plumping up
metal
weight
gate. Yeah. Also, I love the sidebar. The director of the tournament, his name is Jason Fisher.
It's perfect.
I mean,
stories don't get more perfect than this. And I do think you'll see these guys made an example of, and there will be some sort of charges because this, although we think of this as this is a marginal sport, this is like chess.
No,
these regions, this is
that's
big.
$30,000. That could be close to a year's salary. For some people, like that's a lot of money. And and also these people grow up loving fishing. There's sort of a sanctity and a purity to it.
Yes. I think that's
the point of it, is trying to catch the biggest fish. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. And when these guys are cheating,
they're the real life guys who say, I caught a fish this big, but they actually caught it. Like we have that term because there's a lot of pride that goes into catching a large fish. And
so the one that got away.
And the one that got away, well.
Yeah, you lie about the one that got away. You don't stuff one full of metal weights and say this is the one that didn't get away.
It's a remarkable scene. Go watch the video on the website because it's just remarkable sort of slice of society. Like you hear the people just shouting at them. You see the shame on the guy's face because he knows what's coming.
And it's immediate.
Once they open the fish, it's coming out.
There's a long pause, like 5 minutes, where they're counting and what's going on, and then they announce, they say he's cheating, you hear the crowd just start erupting, and then they just start gathering around. I mean, it's awful what they did. I'm glad they weren't physically hurting this because it looked like it was going to get violent.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see if there are charges. I suspect there will be because there's a lot of outrage about this.
There should be.
Prosecutors want to get reelected in these small areas where fishing is a big sport. Better charge these guys.
These game commissioners, yeah.
All right, let's move to our last sort of serious story, which is Elon Musk. Elon Musk suffers from what I call great man syndrome. He thinks he's not only the great man who, modernized the electric car. He is sending satellites to space. He wants to get into all areas. He also wants to be Henry Kissinger. He thinks he can solve the conflict in Ukraine. And he's got a 4-point plan to do so. He said he tweeted, Ukraine-Russia peace. And then he has 4 points. Redo elections of annexed regions under UN supervision. Russia leaves if that's the will of the people.
Because that's what Russia would do.
That's right. Yeah,
well, we lost. I guess we just go home now.
Yeah, Putin would just put his tail between his legs and head on back. The second part is Crimea, formerly part of Russia. This is a very controversial part, as it's been since 1783. A lot of people are saying, well, there were other accords and treaties that said it was part of Ukraine in 1994, a very important one.
Yeah.
Before 2014 when Russia re-annexed it, but he ignored that. He said since 1783, so he's saying that actually should be Russian territory. Very, very controversial.
Well, how far back do you want to go? I mean...
Exactly. Whose territory is it? Just pick a date and time and see whose it is. The third one, water supply to Crimea assured. So Crimea, for people who don't know, is on the Black Sea, and access to the Black Sea is a big, big deal. That's why Russia wants Crimea, not just because it's a beautiful peninsula with nice beaches.
Yeah.
And Ukraine remains neutral, so everyone thinks Ukraine, should they be part of the European Union, or should they remain neutral? He's saying, keep them neutral, or else there will be this Russian aggression. It's not that these points have no sort of
he's saying, this is what's going to happen anyway, so either do it now or how many lives do you want to lose? But this is also basically just saying, more or less simplified, give Putin what he wants.
Yes. The reason I hate this is there's a lot of people thinking about how to solve the conflict in Russia-Ukraine. He's a guy who has probably thought about it a little bit, but is very busy, has a lot of things going on. He's suing Twitter and so forth. And to sort of put this out to his followers as like, I figured it out, I think is irresponsible. And there are people who should just be sort of espousing their support for Ukraine, and that's enough because what Ukraine needs is the support of the world. They don't need your plan. There are plenty of people who have more sophisticated versions of what you've stated, Elon, and that's what bothers me is there's a sense in which he just thinks whatever I say is important and it should go out to millions of people, and people gobble this stuff up, and I think it's destructive to actually solving this crisis.
And it's interesting, quickly, I love the Lithuanian president, who was an ally of Ukraine, sort of put this in terms for Elon. He was basically saying, if someone steals the wheels off your Tesla and claims them as theirs, that doesn't make the wheels or the entire car theirs.
That's right. He says that regardless of whether they vote to take the wheels off your car. So, Elon's putting a lot on, like, let's have some open elections, but there's a core conflict here. There's a sort of misunderstanding of what is legitimate, and you can't just vote away these things necessarily.
And even if you could, that assumes that Putin would just stand by the results of that election.
That's right.
And you can't trust that. So
look, the conflict is very, very complicated, and to boil it down to 4 points, I'm sure there is something to be said for each of these 4 points, but I think Elon hasn't thought this through, nor should he. He's not a Secretary of State of this country who's
not at all
devoted to thinking about these things. He's sort of doing it passively, maybe on a yacht, and I just don't like this kind of approach.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see you guys on Thursday. Download the podcast. Until then, thanks.
See ya.